The Revolutionary, Samuel Adams. Welcome to the channel again today. We're going to be talking about a book that came out last year. It's called The Revolutionary, Samuel Adams, a glorious revelatory biography by Pulitzer Prize winner Ron Chernow. And inside, the pages are thick and creamy, and the print is clear and uncrowded. The Washington Post said it was a magnificent biography, a triumph, saying that Ron Chernow had captured Adams's restless energy and intelligence. We see him grow from a curious and somewhat mischievous young boy into a driven young man who wants to make a difference in the world. And we watch him mature as he faces new challenges, meets influential people and experiences setbacks and successes. The New York Times called it the definitive life of one of America's least well-known founders. First, he believed that the British had no right to tax the colonies without their consent. He kept fighting for the cause he believed in, even when it seemed like all hope was lost. One of the most exciting parts of the book is when Samuel Adams organizes the Boston Tea Party. This event was a turning point in the Revolution. It showed the world that the colonists were serious about their opposition to British rule, and it led to further conflict between the two sides. And I think that's what makes his story so inspiring. I could feel his passion and his intelligence and his determination. It's a page-turner, and it'll leave you feeling inspired and grateful for the sacrifices that people like Samuel Adams made to secure our freedom. And I was inspired by his story. I think anyone who reads this book will feel the same way. Here was a man who wasn't perfect, who had flaws and made mistakes, but who still managed to achieve great things. He was a man who had a dream of a better future for his country, and who worked tirelessly to make that dream a reality. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time. But it was also a risky move, and Samuel Adams knew that he could end up in jail, or worse, but he felt like it was necessary to make a statement, and he was willing to pay the price. Second, he believed that the colonies should boycott British goods until the taxes were repealed. And third, he believed that the colonies should form a political union to resist British policies. And through his speeches and writings, he inspired people all over the colonies to take action. He organized protests, he wrote pamphlets, he helped found committees of correspondence, and he mobilized the public to fight back against the British. And the Wall Street Journal called it a page-turning narrative, and I agree with all of those assessments. It really is a page-turning narrative that brings to life the genius behind the American Revolution. He was one of the men who drafted the Declaration of Independence, and he continued to fight for independence until it was achieved. He fought against slavery and for women's suffrage, and he worked to improve education and public health. Even after independence was declared, Samuel Adams continued to serve his country. He was a delegate to the Constitutional Convention, and he helped draft the Constitution. And although he wasn't a member of the Federalist Party, he supported the ratification of the Constitution because he felt it was important to move forward and build a new nation. The jacket and the cover art are gorgeous, depicting a dramatic moment when Samuel Adams was arrested for his role in the Boston Tea Party. And the author, Ron Chernow, is wonderfully engaging as a writer. His father, John Adams, owned a small farm and was a brewer. And his mother, Elizabeth, was a homemaker and the daughter of a minister. After that, he worked with his father in the family business for a few years, and then he became a brewer himself. But brewing was actually something of a side job for Samuel. His real passion was politics. He joined the local political club and he immersed himself in the issues being discussed at the time. And that's when things started heating up in the colonies. Tensions were rising between the colonies and Great Britain. And when the British began to impose new taxes on the colonies like the Sugar Act, Samuel Adams, along with other men like John Hancock and Paul Revere, resisted organizing boycotts and trying to convince people that they needed to stand up against the tyranny of the British. They were both from old New England families. So, Samuel had quite a bit of pride in his heritage and wanted to honor it. From the time he was young, Samuel exhibited a strong will and an interest in politics. And although he was homeschooled, he taught himself Latin, Greek and Hebrew, and eventually went on to Harvard University. His prose is very clear and direct, making this long and complicated story easy to understand and follow. The book also includes illustrations, photographs, and documents from the time period. So overall, it's a very immersive experience. And I especially appreciated the author's notes, which gave me more information about where he got his sources and the research process. Now, I've read quite a few books about the American Revolution and the Founding Fathers, but this is the first book I've ever read about Samuel Adams, the man considered by many historians to be the most important founding father, the one who really got the ball rolling for the American Revolution. And if you've never heard of Samuel Adams before, well, he was definitely not as famous as his cousin, John Hancock, or as prominent a leader as George Washington. He didn't have any military victories under his belt, and he didn't go on to become president. But what made Samuel Adams so important was his ability to bring people together, to mobilize them, and to get them to think differently, to see how glorious freedom could be, to see how they could have a say in their own government, and to make sure that the ideas of the American Revolution spread far and wide throughout the colonies. The subtitle of this book is a glorious revelatory biography, and it certainly lives up to that. The book itself is beautiful. It's hardback with a nice dust jacket. Now, this book came out last year to some pretty big fans. This book takes us through the entirety of Samuel Adams's life, from his childhood through early adulthood, and then his time as a revolutionary leader and politician. Samuel Adams was born in Boston in 1722, to a family that was poor, but was wealthy either. When Samuel entered Harvard, there were only about 160 students there, and it took him only 2 years to graduate. It was during this time period that Samuel developed his famous ideology of resistance, which included 3 main ideas. But it wasn't always easy. There were times when the revolutionaries lost, when they were arrested or exiled or beaten. But Samuel Adams never gave up. As the revolution grew, Samuel Adams played a key role in the Continental Congress. After the Constitution was ratified, Samuel Adams served as governor of Massachusetts for several terms, and he continued to advocate for the rights of the people. Although Samuel Adams didn't live to see the United States become the powerhouse it would eventually become, he did see enough of it to know that he had played an important role in creating it. But this book brought Samuel Adams to life. I'm not usually a huge fan of biographies, because oftentimes it's just dry, stale facts about someone's life. If you'd like to learn more about Samuel Adams and his role in the American Revolution, I highly recommend this book. Thank you so much for joining me today.